The coffee machine sputtered its last breath at exactly 9:15 on a Tuesday morning, and Cara Fitzgerald knew she was about to break company policy for the third time that week. She stared at the lifeless appliance in the executive break room, mentally calculating how long it would take her to run down to the lobby cafe and back up to the 52nd floor before Xander Emerson noticed his morning espresso was missing from his desk. The answer was not encouraging. Cara had been working as executive assistant to the CEO of Emerson Global Industries for exactly 4 months, and in that time she had learned 3 critical things. First, Xander Emerson took his coffee seriously. Second, the company had strict policies about assistants leaving the executive floor during work hours without prior approval. Third, she was terrible at following rules when those rules seemed pointlessly bureaucratic. She grabbed her purse and made her decision in under 5 seconds. The elevator ride down felt eternal, her foot tapping impatiently against the polished floor as she watched the numbers descend. The lobby cafe was packed with the morning rush, and she nearly groaned out loud when she saw the line snaking toward the door. She checked her phone. 9:20. He would be arriving any minute. "Double espresso, please, and make it fast," she said breathlessly when she finally reached the counter, probably sounding ruder than she intended. The barrister raised an eyebrow but nodded, and Cara forced herself to breathe. This was ridiculous. She was a grown woman having a minor panic attack over coffee. The truth was, it was not really about the coffee. It was about proving she could handle this job, that she deserved to be here, despite the whispers from other assistants who had been with the company longer. It was about showing Xander Emerson that hiring her had not been a mistake. She had the cup in her hand by 9:27 and was practically sprinting toward the elevator when she collided with someone coming through the revolving doors. Hot coffee splashed across her cream blouse and onto the marble floor, and she bit back a curse. "I am so sorry," a deep voice said, and she looked up to find herself staring at her boss. Xander Emerson was not supposed to be here. He always arrived at exactly 9:30, using the private executive elevator in the parking garage. She had his schedule memorized down to the minute. Yet here he was, standing in the lobby with his hand on her elbow to steady her, looking at her with those intense gray eyes that made her forget how to form complete sentences. "Cara." His voice held a note of surprise. "What are you doing down here?" Her mind went blank. The coffee cup hung limply in her hand, now half empty and still dripping. She was fairly certain she looked like a disaster, and the stain spreading across her shirt was not helping matters. "The machine broke," she said finally, gesturing vaguely with the cup. "Your espresso. I did not want you to start the day without it." Something flickered across his face, an expression she could not quite read. He was dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, his dark hair perfectly styled, his jaw sharp enough to cut glass. At 32, he was the youngest CEO in the company's 60-year history, and every bit as intimidating as his reputation suggested. "You left the executive floor for coffee?" he asked, and her stomach dropped. Here it came. The reprimand she deserved. "Yes," she admitted, because lying seemed pointless when she was literally holding the evidence. "I know I am not supposed to, but I thought, let me see your shirt," he interrupted, stepping closer. His eyes had dropped to the coffee stain, and she became acutely aware of how the wet fabric clung to her skin. "It is fine, really. I have a spare in my desk," she lied quickly. He did not look convinced. Instead, he reached for the coffee cup still clutched in her hand, his fingers brushing against hers as he took it. The contact lasted maybe 2 seconds, but she felt it shoot up her arm like electricity. "Come on," he said, turning toward the elevators. "Where?" "The executive floor." You are going to use my private bathroom to clean up, and then we are going to have a conversation about company policies." Her heart sank even as she followed him into the elevator. She had really done it this time. 4 months, and she was about to get fired over coffee and a stupid broken machine. The ride up was silent and excruciating. Xander stood beside her, still holding the cup she had bought, staring straight ahead. She snuck a glance at his profile, at the strong line of his nose and the slight tension in his jaw. She had spent months working mere feet away from this man, managing his calendar, screening his calls, organizing his life. Yet standing here in this small enclosed space, she realized she knew almost nothing about him beyond the professional facade. The elevator opened directly into his office suite, bypassing the main executive floor. She had only been in here twice before, both times to drop off urgent documents. It was all floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist furniture, with a view of the city that probably cost more per square foot than most people's houses. He pointed toward a door on the left. "Bathroom is through there. Take your time." "Mr. Emerson, I am really sorry. Just clean up, Cara." "We will talk after." She fled into the bathroom, closing the door behind her and leaning against it. Her reflection in the mirror was not encouraging. Coffee had splattered across her chest and down her stomach, the cream fabric now a blotchy brown mess. Her dark blonde hair had come loose from its bun during her sprint, and her green eyes looked slightly wild. She did her best to rinse out the stain, but it was hopeless. The blouse was ruined. She was contemplating her options when there was a knock on the door. "Cara, I am leaving a shirt out here for you." She waited until she heard his footsteps retreat before cracking the door open. A white button-down hung on the handle, clearly expensive and clearly his. She pulled it inside and held it up. It would be enormous on her, but it was better than walking around looking like she had lost a fight with a coffee maker. The shirt smelled like him, she realized as she put it on. Something clean and masculine with a hint of cedar. She had to roll the sleeves up 3 times, and even buttoned all the way up it hung loose on her frame, the hem reaching mid-thigh. She looked ridiculous, but at least she looked clean. When she emerged, Xander was standing by the windows with his phone to his ear. He glanced over at her and something in his expression shifted. His eyes traveled down the length of the shirt and back up to her face, and she felt heat creep into her cheeks. "I will call you back," he said into the phone, ending the call without waiting for a response. "Better." "Thank you," she managed. "I will have it cleaned and returned. Do not worry about it." He set his phone down on the desk and crossed his arms, leaning back against the edge. "Now, about you breaking company policy." She straightened her shoulders, determined to face this with dignity. "I know I should not have left the floor without permission. It will not happen again." "Why did you?" The question caught her off guard. "I told you." "The coffee machine broke, and I know you like your espresso in the morning before. I mean, why did you think coffee was important enough to risk getting written up?" He tilted his head slightly, studying her with an intensity that made her want to squirm. "It is just coffee, Cara. I would have survived without it. You have a board meeting at 10, she said automatically, and a conference call with Tokyo at 11. You always have espresso before important meetings. It helps you focus. You know that about me. It is my job to know that about you." She paused, then added more quietly, "I did not want you to have a bad morning because I could not figure out how to fix a coffee machine." He was quiet for a long moment, his gray eyes never leaving hers. Finally, he said, "You are not in trouble." "I am not. No. But I am changing your clearance level. As of now, you have permission to leave the executive floor whenever necessary. I will send the authorization to HR this morning." She blinked at him, thrown by the sudden reversal. "You do not have to do that." Clearly I do, if my assistant feels she needs to sneak around to do her job properly. He pushed off from the desk, closing some of the distance between them. You have been here 4 months and you have not taken a single sick day. You stay late without being asked. You anticipate problems before they happen. Yesterday, you caught an error in the contract with Meridian that would have cost us millions. Do you really think I care if you go to the lobby for coffee? The other assistant said. What did they say? She hesitated. She had learned quickly that office politics were treacherous territory, especially at the executive level. But something about the way he was looking at her, direct and genuinely curious, made her answer honestly. That you went through 3 assistants last year. That you have impossible standards and no patience for mistakes. That I should follow every rule exactly, or I would end up like the others. And yet you broke the rules anyway. The rules seemed less important than making sure you had what you needed. A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth, so brief she almost missed it. That is the difference between you and them. They followed the rules because they were afraid of me. You break them because you are trying to do the job well. Should I be afraid of you? The question slipped out before she could stop it, and she immediately wanted to take it back. This was her boss, the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. She could not just ask him personal questions like they were friends, but Xander did not seem offended. Instead, he considered the question seriously. Probably, he said finally, most people are. It makes business easier. That sounds lonely. His eyes sharpened, and she realized she had crossed a line. I should get to my desk, she said quickly. Let you prepare for your meeting. Cara. She stopped at the door, looking back at him. Thank you for the coffee. He lifted the cup she had bought, which he had set on his desk, and for caring enough about my morning to risk breaking the rules. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak, and escaped into the hallway. Her heart was pounding, though she could not entirely explain why. It had just been a conversation. A perfectly normal conversation with her boss after a minor mishap. There was no reason for her pulse to be racing or for her skin to still feel warm where his eyes had lingered on her in his shirt. The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings and phone calls. Cara worked from her desk just outside Xander's office, hyper-aware of his presence through the glass walls. She had changed back into her ruined blouse, having no other option, and spent the day with a cardigan buttoned over the stain. At 6:30, when most of the office had emptied out, Xander emerged from his office with his jacket slung over his shoulder. You are still here, he observed. Just finishing up the quarterly reports you wanted compiled. She gestured at her computer screen, which was covered in spreadsheets. Those are not due until Friday, I know. But if I finish them tonight, I can spend tomorrow preparing the presentation materials for the investor meeting next week. He moved closer, looking at the screen over her shoulder. She could feel the warmth of him standing just behind her chair, could smell that cedar scent that had clung to his shirt. You do know that working yourself to exhaustion will not make the other assistants accept you faster, right? His voice was gentle, lacking any criticism. I am not trying to make them accept me. Then what are you trying to do? She turned in her chair to look up at him, craning her neck. Prove I deserve to be here, that I am good enough for this position. You already proved that when I hired you, did I? Or did you just need someone quickly after the last assistant quit? The question came out more bitter than she intended, revealing insecurities she had not meant to show. Xander set his jacket down on her desk and crouched beside her chair so they were at eye level. The gesture surprised her so much she nearly rolled backward. I interviewed 23 candidates for this position, he said quietly. People with twice your experience and connections throughout the industry. I chose you because when I asked what you would do if you discovered a serious problem but I was unreachable, you said you would solve it yourself and brief me later. Everyone else said they would wait for instructions. That is why you hired me, because I am presumptuous. I hired you because you are capable of independent thought, because you take initiative, because you care more about getting things done right than about following protocols that do not make sense. He paused, his gray eyes searching her face. You are exactly good enough, Cara. Stop trying to prove otherwise. She did not know what to say to that. He had never been this direct with her before, never shared this much. In 4 months, their relationship had been nothing but professional courtesy and efficient communication. This felt like something else entirely. Why are you telling me this? She asked. He stood, picking up his jacket again. Because you were willing to risk your job for my coffee this morning. I figured you deserved to know your job was never at risk in the first place. He headed toward the elevator, then paused. Go home, Cara. The reports can wait. Will you? She was not sure what made her bold enough to ask. Go home, I mean. He glanced back at her with an expression that might have been surprise or might have been something else. Eventually. You should not work yourself to exhaustion either, she said, echoing his words back at him. It sets a bad example for your assistant. This time the smile was unmistakable, transforming his entire face. It made him look younger, less intimidating, almost human. Point taken. Good night, Cara. Good night, Mr. Emerson. She watched him disappear into the elevator, then sat staring at her computer screen without really seeing it. Something had shifted between them today, something subtle but undeniable, and she had no idea what to do about it. The next morning, she arrived to find a brand new coffee machine installed in the executive break room, top of the line and probably imported from Italy, based on the sleek design. There was a note stuck to it in handwriting she recognized from 1,000 signed documents. So you do not have to break any more rules. Z. She ran her fingers over the note, feeling something warm and unfamiliar bloom in her chest. This was dangerous territory. Xander Emerson was her boss. Her billionaire CEO boss who could fire her with a word, and who probably had women far more sophisticated than her throwing themselves at him constantly. Getting any kind of feelings for him was a spectacularly bad idea. She crumpled the note and threw it in the trash, then made herself march to her desk and focus on work. She had emails to answer, schedules to coordinate, a million small fires to put out before his first meeting at 9. But when Xander arrived at 9:30 sharp, she could not help noticing the way his eyes found hers immediately, or the slight smile that played at his lips when she handed him his espresso. The machine works well, she said, keeping her tone professional. Good. I would hate to have to write you up for breaking policy again. You gave me clearance to leave the floor. I did, but I prefer you here. The words hung in the air between them, loaded with meaning she was not sure she should read into. Before she could formulate a response, his first appointment arrived and the moment passed. The week continued in the same vein. Professionally, nothing changed. Cara did her job with the same efficiency and dedication she always had, but there were moments, small ones. Xander asking her opinion on a presentation before delivering it to the board. Him bringing her coffee one afternoon when she was drowning in paperwork, remembering without asking that she took it with cream and sugar. The way his hand would brush against hers when she handed him documents, contact that lasted just a fraction too long to be accidental. She told herself she was imagining it, that her stupid, inconvenient attraction was making her see things that were not there. Xander Emerson was just being a decent boss, probably trying to make sure she did not quit like the others. It meant nothing. Then came the charity gala. Emerson Global Industries, was one of the main sponsors of the annual Children's Hospital benefit, a black tie affair that drew the city's wealthiest and most influential. Cara had spent weeks coordinating Xander's attendance, arranging his schedule, preparing briefing documents on key attendees he should connect with. What she had not prepared for was him asking her to attend as well. "It is part of your job," he said when he brought it up on Thursday afternoon. "I need someone there who knows my schedule, who can handle any issues that come up. My last assistant always attended these events." "Of course," she agreed, trying to ignore the flutter of nerves in her stomach. "What time should I be there? I will pick you up at 7. "You do not need to do that. I can meet you at the venue, Cara." He looked up from his computer, giving her his full attention. "I am not letting you navigate downtown in formal wear during evening traffic. I will pick you up. Send me your address." It was not a request. She nodded and fled to her desk before she could say something stupid. Saturday evening found her standing in front of her closet, having a minor crisis. She owned exactly one dress suitable for a gala, a simple black number she had bought for her college graduation. It was elegant enough, but wearing black to a spring benefit felt wrong. After an hour of trying and discarding every possible combination of items in her wardrobe, she finally called her roommate in desperation. "Just buy a new dress," Madison said, as if it were the simplest thing in the world. "The gala is in 3 hours, so go now. There is a boutique 2 blocks from you that stays open late. I will text you the address. And Cara, get something that is not black. You wear too much black." Cara made it to the boutique with 2 hours to spare. The shop was small but clearly expensive, the kind of place where they brought you champagne while you browsed. The sales associate took one look at her panicked expression and took charge, pulling dresses from racks with expert efficiency. "This one," the woman declared, holding up a gown in deep emerald green. "With your eyes, it will be perfect." Cara looked at the price tag and nearly fainted. "I cannot afford. We have a payment plan. And trust me, honey, this dress is an investment." 20 minutes later, Cara walked out with the dress in a garment bag, her credit card smoking from the charge. She kept telling herself it was for work, a professional expense. The fact that she wanted Xander to see her in it had nothing to do with anything. Back at her apartment, she showered and did her makeup with more care than usual. The dress fit like it had been made for her, hugging her curves before flowing out from her hips in soft waves of fabric. She left her hair down, curling it loosely so it fell past her shoulders. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The buzzer sounded at exactly 7. Of course, Xander would be precisely on time. She grabbed her clutch, took a deep breath, and headed downstairs. He was waiting by a sleek black car, dressed in a tuxedo that made him look like he had stepped out of a magazine. His eyes widened when he saw her, traveling slowly from her heels up the length of the dress before meeting her face. "Cara," he said, and her name sounded different in his voice. Lower, rougher. "Hi." Her voice came out breathier than intended. "I hope I am not overdressed. I was not sure what. You look beautiful." The compliment was simple, direct, and completely unexpected. She felt heat rise in her cheeks as he opened the car door for her, his hand settling briefly on her lower back as she slid into the seat. That was new. He had never touched her like that before. The drive to the venue was quiet. Cara spent most of it staring out the window, trying to calm her racing heart. This was work. Just work. The fact that she was in a gorgeous dress sitting next to the most attractive man she had ever met while he drove them to a gala meant nothing at all. "You are nervous," Xander observed about halfway there. "I have never been to one of these before. It is just a bunch of rich people trying to out-donate each other while drinking expensive wine. Nothing to worry about." Easy for you to say. You are one of the rich people. He glanced over at her, a smile playing at his lips. Fair point. But you have handled board meetings with venture capitalists and conference calls with hostile investors without breaking a sweat. A gala will be easy by comparison. Those were work. This is. She trailed off, not sure how to finish. Also work, he supplied, but something in his tone suggested he did not entirely believe it either. The venue was a historic hotel downtown, all marble columns and crystal chandeliers. Photographers lined the entrance, snapping pictures of arriving guests. Cara felt her stomach clench as Xander handed his keys to the valet and came around to open her door. Just stay with me, he said quietly, offering his arm. I will handle the photos. She slipped her hand into the crook of his elbow, and they walked into the gauntlet of flashing cameras together. Someone called Xander's name, asking him to pose. His arm tightened slightly, keeping her close as lights exploded around them. Mr. Emerson, who is your date? This is Cara Fitzgerald, my executive assistant, he replied smoothly, already guiding them toward the entrance. And we are here to support the children's hospital, not to feed gossip columns. Inside, the ballroom was breathtaking. Tables draped in white linen surrounded a dance floor, and a live orchestra played soft jazz near the stage. Waiters circulated with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. The crowd was exactly what Xander had described: wealthy, polished, and engaged in the subtle competition of high society charity. Xander, a woman's voice called out, and they turned to see an elegant blonde approaching in a dress that probably cost more than Cara's car. I was hoping you would be here, Vanessa. Xander's tone was polite but cool. Good to see you. This is my assistant, Cara Fitzgerald. Cara, this is Vanessa Sterling. Her family runs Sterling Financial. Vanessa's eyes flicked over Cara with the kind of dismissive assessment that made her feel like she had been found wanting. How nice. You brought your assistant. How very practical of you. I prefer to think of it as efficient, Xander replied, and Cara could hear the edge beneath his pleasant tone. If you will excuse us, we need to find our table. He steered them away before Vanessa could respond, and Cara released a breath she had not realized she was holding. Friend of yours. Ex-girlfriend. From about 5 years ago, she has never quite accepted that the relationship ended. She seems lovely, Cara said dryly, and was rewarded with a genuine laugh from Xander. She is exactly what you think she is. Come on, I see our table. The evening progressed with surprising ease. Cara had worried she would feel out of place, but Xander kept her close, introducing her to people and drawing her into conversations. She met tech CEOs and real estate moguls, philanthropists and politicians. Several times, she noticed women watching Xander with obvious interest, their gazes turning cold when they landed on her. You have a lot of admirers, she murmured during a lull in conversation. Hazard of being single and wealthy, apparently. He took a sip of his wine. It gets exhausting. Poor billionaire, fending off attractive women. My heart bleeds for you. He turned to look at her, something sharp and intense in his eyes. Most of them do not see me. They see my bank account and my name. There is a difference. She had not expected that vulnerability, that hint of something real beneath the polished exterior. For what it is worth, I did not know who you were when I applied for the job. I just needed the work. I know. It is part of why I hired you. You treated me like a person, not a status symbol. Before she could respond, the lights dimmed and the MC took the stage to begin the auction portion of the evening. Cara tried to focus on the proceedings, but she was hyper-aware of Xander beside her, of how close their chairs were, of how his sleeve brushed against her bare arm. The auction items were predictably extravagant. vacation packages to private islands, exclusive wine collections, art from renowned galleries. Xander bid on a few pieces, always stopping just before the prices became truly ridiculous. Then the final item was announced. And our last lot of the evening is a truly unique experience. A private dinner prepared by Michelin star chef Roberto Castillo for 2 guests at a location of their choosing. Bidding starts at $10,000. $20,000, a voice called from across the room. Cara turned to see Vanessa Sterling with her paddle raised, her eyes fixed on Xander with unmistakable intention. $30,000, Xander countered immediately, not even looking at Vanessa. The bidding escalated quickly, climbing past $50,000, then $75,000. The room had gone quiet, everyone watching the battle between Xander and Vanessa with fascination. Cara felt sick. This was about more than charity. This was Vanessa trying to buy time with Xander, and Xander refusing to let her. $100,000, Vanessa declared, challenge clear in her voice. Xander raised his paddle calmly. $200,000. Gasps rippled through the crowd. That was an insane amount for a dinner, even with a celebrity chef. Vanessa's face flushed, but she raised her paddle again. $250,000. $500,000. Xander's voice was flat, final. And I am prepared to go higher if needed. The room erupted in whispers. Vanessa sat frozen, her paddle lowering slowly. She had the money to match his bid, but doing so would look desperate. After a long moment, she turned away, effectively conceding defeat. Sold. To Xander Emerson for $500,000. Applause filled the ballroom. Xander set down his paddle and reached for his wine glass as if he had not just spent $500,000 to win an auction against his ex-girlfriend. That was. Cara did not know how to finish the sentence. Necessary, he said quietly. If Vanessa had won, she would have shown up at my office with it and made a production out of inviting me. This was cleaner. You just spent $500,000 to avoid an awkward conversation. I spent $500,000 for a children's hospital. Avoiding Vanessa was a bonus. He glanced at her, a hint of mischief in his gray eyes. Besides, now I have a private dinner with a world-class chef to look forward to. I am sure you will enjoy it. I intend to. Assuming you like Italian food, she stared at him. What? The dinner is for 2. I am inviting you. Xander, that is not you should take someone you actually want to spend an evening with, not your assistant. I want to spend the evening with you. The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Around them, people were standing, mingling as the auction concluded. But Cara felt frozen in place, her heart pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. We should not, she said finally. I work for you. There are policies about workplace relationships, yes. I wrote most of them. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. But there is nothing in company policy that prevents me from having dinner with my assistant as a thank you for 4 months of exceptional work. Is that what this would be? A thank you? His eyes held hers, storm gray and intense. Would you prefer it was something else? She could not breathe. Could not think. This was her boss. This was Xander Emerson, billionaire CEO, the man who held her career in his hands. Getting involved with him would be the worst idea in a lifetime of questionable decisions. I do not know what I prefer, she admitted quietly. Then have dinner with me and we will figure it out. Someone called his name before she could respond, and the moment shattered. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. She smiled and made small talk and pretended her entire world had not just tilted on its axis. When Xander finally drove her home, they rode in silence, the air thick with unspoken words. He walked her to her building's entrance despite her protests. Under the streetlight, he looked younger, less like a CEO and more like just a man. Thank you for coming tonight, he said. I know it was outside your normal job duties. Thank you for inviting me and for the dress advice. You were right about not wearing black. You were beautiful. You are beautiful. He corrected himself, present tense, and she felt her breath catch. Xander, I know, I am your boss. There are 1,000 reasons why this is complicated. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration that made him seem almost vulnerable. But I cannot stop thinking about you. I have not been able to stop since you showed up in my office 4 months ago, nervous and determined and ready to prove yourself. You have not said anything. Because I did not want to be that boss, the one who uses his position to pressure his assistant. But tonight, watching you in that dress, seeing you handle my world with confidence and grace. He shook his head. I do not want to just be your boss anymore, Cara. She should say no, should tell him this was impossible and that she valued her career too much to risk it. But standing there with him in the dim light, she could not make herself lie. I do not want you to just be my boss either, she whispered. He stepped closer, his hand coming up to cup her cheek. His thumb brushed across her skin, the touch feather light and devastating. Tell me to stop. I cannot. He kissed her then, slow and deep and perfect. She melted into him, her hands fisting in his tuxedo jacket as his arm wrapped around her waist. He kissed like he did everything else, with complete focus and intensity that left no room for doubt. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, she felt dizzy with want. We have to talk about this, she managed. About what it means for work, for Monday, he interrupted gently. We will figure everything out Monday. Tonight, just let me kiss you again. She smiled against his lips. That might violate company policy. Good thing I am the CEO then. I can change the policies. He kissed her again, and she stopped worrying about rules. Monday morning arrived too quickly. Cara stood outside the office building at 8:45, coffee in hand, trying to calm her nerves. She had spent the entire day Sunday alternating between euphoria and panic. Xander Emerson had kissed her. Her billionaire boss had kissed her and told her he wanted more, and she had kissed him back like her life depended on it. Now she had to face him in the office and figure out what that meant for her job. She made her way to the 52nd floor, her heart racing faster with each ascending number. The executive floor was quiet this early, most people not arriving until 9. She set her bag down at her desk and booted up her computer, trying to focus on her morning routine. You are here early. She spun around to find Xander standing in his office doorway, tie loose and sleeves rolled up. He looked tired, like maybe he had not slept much either. I could say the same to you, she replied. I needed to think, and I think better here. He gestured toward his office. Can you come in? We should talk. She followed him inside, nerves singing under her skin. He closed the door behind them and leaned against his desk, arms crossed. The pose was casual, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. I did not sleep much this weekend, he admitted. I kept thinking about what I said to you Saturday night, about how unfair it was of me to put you in that position. Her stomach dropped. Here it came. The backpedaling, the explanation of why it had been a mistake. You work for me, he continued, which means there is an inherent power imbalance in any relationship we might have. You might feel pressured to say yes to something you do not actually want because you are worried about your job. Xander, let me finish. He held up a hand. I have been thinking about this for months now, about how I feel when you walk into a room, about how my first thought every morning is whether you will smile at me when I arrive. About how I look forward to problems because it means I get to watch you solve them. He paused, his eyes searching her face. I am in love with you, Cara, completely and probably inappropriately in love with you. And I need to know if that is something you could ever feel too, or if I have made this impossibly awkward. She could not breathe. could not process what he had just said, in love with her. Xander Emerson was in love with her. Say something, he said quietly. Please. You love me. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. Yes. Since when, honestly? Probably since you broke company policy to buy me coffee. A slight smile tugged at his lips. Definitely since you told me the rules were less important than doing the job right. I thought you were just being nice. That maybe you saw me as a good assistant but nothing more. Cara, I bought a $3,000 coffee maker so you would not have an excuse to leave the floor. That was not about coffee. A laugh bubbled up in her chest, slightly hysterical. I saved the note you left. The one you said was from XC. I kept it in my desk drawer. Why? Because it made me feel like maybe you saw me as more than just another employee, like maybe I mattered to you. He pushed off the desk and closed the distance between them in 2 strides. His hands came up to frame her face, tilting it up toward his. You matter to me more than you know, but I need you to understand what this means. If we do this, if we try to have a relationship, people will talk. They will say I am taking advantage of you, that you are sleeping your way to the top. It will be ugly. I do not care what people say. You might when you are the subject of every piece of office gossip. Xander. She covered his hands with hers, holding them against her cheeks. I am in love with you too. I have been falling for you for months, and I kept telling myself it was impossible. That you were my boss and I was your assistant and it could never work. But if you are telling me it could work, that you want to try, then I do not care about gossip or policies or what anyone else thinks. He kissed her then, hard and desperate. She wrapped her arms around his neck, pressing closer as his hands slid down to her waist. This kiss was different from Saturday night. Less controlled, more urgent, like he had been holding back for months and could not anymore. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. We are going to have to tell HR, I know. And I am going to have to recuse myself from your performance reviews. Someone else will have to handle those. Okay. And we should probably have you report to someone else eventually. Maybe Denise in operations. She needs a good assistant. Cara pulled back to look at him. You want me to stop being your assistant? I want to be able to take you to dinner without worrying about conflicts of interest. I want to kiss you at the office without violating ethics policies. I want. He cupped her face again, his thumb tracing her bottom lip. I want you, Cara, not my assistant, you. What if I want to be both? That is not how corporate policies work. Then change the policies. You are the CEO. You said so yourself, he laughed, the sound full of warmth and affection. You are going to be trouble, are not you, probably. Is that a problem? Not even a little bit. He kissed her again, and she decided that breaking policy had been the best decision she had ever made. The conversation with HR was exactly as awkward as Cara had feared. She and Xander sat across from Helen Martinez, the head of human resources, and explained the situation while Helen listened with an expression that gave nothing away. So you are saying you want to pursue a romantic relationship, Helen summarized when they finished. Despite the fact that Cara directly reports to you and you have complete authority over her employment. Yes, Xander said, which is why I am proposing we restructure her position. She can report to Denise Warren in operations, work on company-wide projects instead of just supporting me. Her salary and benefits remain the same, but she is removed from my direct chain of command. And you are both certain this is what you want. This is not a situation where Cara feels pressured to agree because of Xander's position. I am certain, Cara said firmly. I would not be here if I did not want this. Helen was quiet for a long moment, studying them both. Finally, she sighed. This is highly unusual. But given that you are proactively addressing the conflict of interest and Xander is willing to restructure reporting lines, I do not see a policy violation. I will need you both to sign some additional disclosure forms, and there will need to be a formal announcement to prevent rumors." "Whatever you need," Xander agreed. The formal announcement came in the form of a company-wide email that afternoon. It was brief and professional, explaining that Cara Fitzgerald was being promoted to executive coordinator for company operations and would now report to Denise Warren, and that she and CEO Xander Emerson were in a relationship. The email emphasized the restructuring and made it clear that all proper procedures had been followed. Cara's phone exploded with messages within minutes. Most were congratulations from colleagues she barely knew. A few were thinly veiled accusations or jealous comments. Madison sent a string of exclamation points followed by a demand for details. "You okay?" Xander asked, appearing at her desk. "I am now the subject of every conversation in this building. Probably want to give them something to really talk about." Before she could ask what he meant, he leaned down and kissed her, right there in the middle of the executive floor with its glass walls and open sightlines. It was not a long kiss, nothing inappropriate for the office, but it was clearly not professional either. "There," he said when he pulled back. "Now they can stop speculating and start actually working." She laughed, some of the tension in her chest easing. "You are enjoying this." "A little. I have spent 4 months not being able to touch you. I am making up for lost time." "Mr. Emerson, Miss Fitzgerald." Denise Warren approached with a warm smile. "I understand I am gaining a new team member. If that is all right with you," Cara said quickly. "More than all right. I have been trying to convince Xander to share you for months. Your organizational skills are legendary." Denise pulled out a tablet. "Why do not you come by my office tomorrow and we can discuss your new responsibilities? I am thinking you would be perfect for coordinating the merger project with Halstead Industries." "I would love that, thank you." After Denise left, Cara turned to Xander. "She has been trying to convince you to share me. Half the executives in the company have been trying to poach you. You are very good at your job, Cara. I was not exaggerating about that." He glanced at his watch. "I have a meeting in 10 minutes. Dinner tonight." "Are you asking as my boss or as my boyfriend?" "Boyfriend. Definitely boyfriend." The word sent a thrill through her. "Then yes." He left for his meeting wearing a smile that made him look younger and lighter than she had ever seen him. Cara sat at her desk, trying to process how much her life had changed in less than a week. She had gone from dedicated assistant to girlfriend of one of the city's most prominent billionaires. It was surreal. "So you are dating the boss?" Cara looked up to find Vanessa Sterling standing by her desk, perfectly styled and wearing an expression of cold disdain. "Yes," Cara said carefully. "Is there something I can help you with? I just wanted to see for myself. See what Xander saw in you that he did not see in me." Vanessa looked her up and down critically. "You are pretty, I suppose, in a girl next door kind of way, but he will get bored. Men like Xander always do, and when he does, you will be back to filing and answering phones while he moves on to someone more appropriate. I think you should leave." Cara kept her voice level despite the anger building in her chest. "I am just being honest. You are a nice distraction, but you do not actually belong in his world. The gala was proof of that. You did not know anyone, did not understand the dynamics. You were a pretty accessory he brought because his actual peers intimidate him. That is enough." Xander's voice was cold fury. He had appeared from the direction of the conference rooms, and from his expression he had heard at least part of Vanessa's speech. "You need to leave. Now." "Xander, I was just, now, Vanessa, or I will have security escort you out." Vanessa's face flushed red, but she turned and walked toward the elevators with as much dignity as she could muster. Xander watched until she was gone, then crouched beside Cara's chair. Are you all right? I am fine. She is just bitter. She is also wrong about all of it. He took her hand, lacing their fingers together. You belong anywhere you choose to be, including in my life. She is not the only one who thinks it, though. The other assistants, some of the executives, they all think I am just some girl who got lucky, that I am not really qualified for any of this. You think that? She considered the question honestly. No, I know I am good at my job. But sometimes it is hard to ignore what everyone else is saying. Then let me tell you what I know. He squeezed her hand gently. You are brilliant, capable, and stronger than you give yourself credit for. You earned this job and you earned this promotion. What we have together, what we are starting, has nothing to do with work and everything to do with the fact that I cannot imagine my life without you in it. He paused. Anyone who suggests otherwise is welcome to take it up with me personally. She smiled despite herself. My protective billionaire boyfriend. I like the sound of that. Which part, protective or boyfriend? Both. She leaned forward and kissed him softly. Thank you for defending me, for believing in me, always. The first few weeks of their relationship were an adjustment. Cara moved to operations, taking on responsibility for several high-profile company projects. The work was challenging and engaging, and she loved having more autonomy. But she missed being near Xander all day, missed the casual conversations and quiet moments that had defined their first months together. They made it work, though. Lunch together twice a week. Dinner most nights, either at restaurants or increasingly at one of their apartments. Weekends spent exploring the city or staying in and learning each other's habits and preferences. Cara learned that Xander was terrible at cooking but excellent at ordering takeout. That he read voraciously, mostly history and biography. That he had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard and made her laugh. That he was generous to a fault with everyone except himself. Xander learned that Cara sang in the shower but was shy about singing in front of people. That she took her coffee sweet but her tea plain. That she was fiercely loyal to the people she cared about and had a temper that only showed when someone she loved was threatened. That she challenged him in ways no one else did, refusing to let him hide behind his CEO persona. You are different with me, she observed one night. They were in his apartment, a penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows and more space than 3 people would need. She was curled against his side on the couch, his arm around her shoulders. How so? More relaxed. More yourself. At the office you are always so controlled, so careful about everything you say and do, but here you are just Xander. I have to be controlled at work. People expect it from me. Do you ever get tired of it, being what everyone expects instead of what you want to be? He was quiet for a moment, his fingers tracing idle patterns on her shoulder. Sometimes, but that is what comes with the position, with the family name. She had learned bits and pieces about his background over the weeks. How his father had built Emerson Global from nothing, working 90-hour weeks and sacrificing everything for success. How Xander had been groomed from childhood to take over, attending the best schools and making the right connections. How his father had died suddenly 5 years ago, leaving Xander to step into shoes he had not been sure he could fill. Your father would be proud of you, she said softly, of what you have built, what you have accomplished. Would he? I have changed a lot of his policies, restructured entire divisions. Half the board thinks I am dismantling his legacy. You are not dismantling it. You are evolving it. There is a difference. She shifted to look up at him. And the fact that you care what he would think, that you are still trying to honor what he built, that shows how much you respect what he created, even while making it your own. He kissed the top of her head, pulling her closer. How do you do that? Do what? Always know exactly what I need to hear. Maybe I just know you better than you think. You do, better than almost anyone. She smiled against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. This, she thought, this is what I was waiting for. 3 months into their relationship, Xander took her to meet his mother. Margaret Emerson lived in a sprawling estate an hour outside the city, the kind of place with actual grounds and a staff. Cara was terrified. "She is going to hate me," she said for the 10th time as Xander drove through the gates. "She is not going to hate you. She is going to love you." "How do you know?" "Because I love you, and my mother wants me to be happy." It was not the first time he had said the words, but they still sent warmth flooding through her chest. "I love you too, but I am still terrified. For what it is worth, I am slightly terrified too. Really. I have never brought anyone to meet her before. She is going to read way too much into this. Is she wrong to?" He glanced over at her, something soft and serious in his expression. "No, she is not wrong." Margaret Emerson turned out to be nothing like Cara had feared. She was in her late 50s, elegant but warm, with kind eyes and a smile that reminded Cara of Xander. She greeted them at the door and immediately pulled Cara into a hug. "I am so happy to finally meet you. Xander has told me so much. All good things, I hope," Cara managed, glowing things. Come in, come in. I have tea ready." The afternoon passed surprisingly easily. Margaret asked about Cara's work, her family, her interests, all with genuine curiosity rather than interrogation. She told stories about Xander as a child, embarrassing him thoroughly and making Cara laugh until her sides hurt. "He was such a serious little boy," Margaret said, smiling fondly at her son. "Always reading, always planning. His father used to worry he was too much in his own head." "Some things do not change," Cara teased, and Xander rolled his eyes but did not deny it. As the afternoon wore on, Margaret pulled Cara aside while Xander was taking a phone call in the other room. "I want you to know how much it means to me that you are here," Margaret said quietly. After his father died, Xander threw himself into work. He stopped letting people in, stopped making time for anything that was not the company. I have been worried about him for years. "He is incredibly dedicated," Cara agreed carefully. "He was incredibly alone. Until you." Margaret took her hand, squeezing gently. "You have brought him back to life, Cara. I can see it in his eyes, in the way he talks about you. He is happy again, and I cannot thank you enough for that." Cara felt tears prick at her eyes. "I am not doing anything special, I am just loving him." "That is everything, dear. That is exactly what he needs." On the drive home, Xander reached over and took her hand. "My mother likes you. I like her too. She is wonderful. She told me I should marry you." Cara's heart jumped. "She did? Right before we left. She pulled me aside and said if I let you get away, she would disown me." He glanced over, his expression hard to read. "For the record, I agree with her. About marrying me, about not letting you get away, the marriage part." He paused. "I am getting ahead of myself. We have only been together a few months. But you have thought about it." It was not a question. "Yes, I have thought about it." His grip on her hand tightened. "I have thought about what it would be like to come home to you every night, to wake up with you every morning. To build a life together instead of just dating." He pulled over to the side of the road suddenly, putting the car in park and turning to face her. "I know it is too soon. I know we should wait, be sensible, take our time. But I have spent my entire life being sensible and careful, and I am tired of it. I love you, Cara. I want everything with you." She could not breathe, could not think past the roaring in her ears. "Everything, marriage, a home, kids if you want them, growing old together, all of it." He cupped her face in his hands. "I am not asking you to decide right now. I am just telling you where my head is, where my heart is. Xander." She covered his hands with hers, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I want that too, all of it, with you." He kissed her then, deep and slow and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, both smiling through tears, he rested his forehead against hers. "So we are doing this," he murmured. "We are doing this. You are going to marry me someday." "Yes. And you are okay with that?" "With being married to a workaholic billionaire with too many responsibilities and not enough free time. I am in love with the workaholic billionaire. The rest is just details," he laughed, the sound full of joy and relief. "I do not have a ring. I do not need a ring, not yet. This is enough." But 3 weeks later, he proposed anyway. They were at his apartment, cooking dinner together, or rather Cara was cooking while Xander supervised and provided unhelpful commentary. She was stirring pasta sauce when he suddenly dropped to one knee beside her. "What are you doing?" she asked, confused. He pulled a small box from his pocket, opening it to reveal a stunning diamond ring. Simple but elegant, exactly her style even though they had never discussed it. "Cara Fitzgerald, I know we said we would wait. But I wake up every morning absolutely certain that I want to spend the rest of my life with you, and waiting feels pointless. Will you marry me?" The wooden spoon clattered into the sink. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious. I've had the ring for 2 weeks. I was trying to plan something romantic, but then you were standing here in my kitchen singing off-key to the radio and I realized this was perfect. This is us." He smiled up at her, vulnerable and hopeful. "So what do you say? Will you marry me?" "Yes." The word came out choked with tears. "Yes, of course yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger and stood, pulling her into his arms and kissing her breathless. When they finally broke apart, both laughing and crying, the pasta sauce had started to burn. "We are terrible at cooking," she said, wiping at her eyes. "We will order takeout. We are good at that. We are good at a lot of things. We are going to be even better at being married." She kissed him again, tasting possibility and promise. When what? When do you want to get married? Long engagement or?" "How do you feel about next month?" She laughed, then realized he was serious. "Xander, we cannot plan a wedding in a month." "Why not? We will keep it small, just family and close friends, something simple and perfect like us." "There is nothing simple about us." "Then we will make it complicated and perfect. But I do not want to wait a year to call you my wife." "Do you?" She thought about it, about waiting through months of planning and preparation, through dress fittings and venue bookings and all the traditional wedding nonsense. Then she thought about standing beside Xander in front of the people they loved and promising forever. "Next month," she agreed. "But you are in charge of the guest list. Deal. And you are in charge of everything else. That does not seem fair. You are better at planning than I am. And besides, I do not care about any of it. I just care about marrying you." They ended up ordering Chinese food and eating it on the floor of his living room, planning their wedding between bites of lo mein. It was ridiculous and impulsive and absolutely perfect. The wedding took place 5 weeks later in the gardens of Margaret Emerson's estate. It was small, just 50 guests, under an arch of white roses as the sun set. Cara wore a simple white dress she had found at a boutique, and Xander could not stop staring at her. "You are beautiful," he whispered when she reached him at the altar. "You are not so bad yourself." The ceremony was short and heartfelt. They had written their own vows, promising to support each other's dreams, to communicate honestly, to choose love even when it was difficult. When the officiant pronounced them married, Xander kissed her like it was the last kiss in the world, and their guests erupted in applause. At the reception, Margaret pulled Cara aside, tears in her eyes. "Welcome to the family, dear, officially. Thank you for raising such an amazing man. He is better with you, you balance him." Margaret squeezed her hand. "His father would have loved you." Cara felt her own eyes water. "I wish I could have met him. He would have seen in you what I see, what Xander sees. Someone strong enough to stand beside him." smart enough to challenge him, and loving enough to remind him what actually matters in life. Later, as she and Xander danced under strings of lights while stars appeared overhead, Cara marveled at how her life had changed. A year ago, she had been unemployed and uncertain. Now she was married to the man she loved, building a career she was proud of, surrounded by people who supported her. "What are you thinking?" Xander asked, pulling her closer. "That I am really glad I broke company policy for your coffee." He laughed, the sound rumbling through his chest. "Best policy violation in company history. Think we will get in trouble for it? I am the CEO. I will just change the policy to retroactively allow it. That is not how policies work. It is if you are a billionaire." He spun her slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. "I love you, Mrs. Emerson." The name sent a thrill through her. "I love you too, Mr. Emerson. Ready to start forever with you, absolutely." They danced until the stars were fully out, wrapped in each other and in the certainty that they had found exactly what they were looking for. The office would gossip, people would have opinions, but none of it mattered. They had each other, and that was everything. 2 years later, Cara stood in the nursery of their new house, painting the walls a soft yellow while Xander assembled a crib with more determination than skill. "I think this piece is supposed to go the other way," she observed, watching him struggle with the instructions. "The instructions are wrong, or you are reading them upside down." He looked at the paper, then flipped it around sheepishly. "Okay, the instructions might be right." She laughed, settling a hand on her rounded stomach. At 6 months pregnant, she was starting to feel like a whale, but Xander still looked at her like she was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. "We are going to be terrible at this," she said, not for the first time. "At what? Parenting, all of it. We can barely put together furniture." He stood, crossing to wrap his arms around her from behind, his hands covering hers on her stomach. "We said the same thing about getting married in 5 weeks, and about you moving to operations, and about telling my mother we were dating. We have a pattern of being terrible at things and then figuring them out. This is different. This is a tiny human who will depend on us for everything. Good thing there are 2 of us then." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "We will figure it out together like we figure out everything. And when we mess up, which we will fix it and learn and keep going. You are very confident for someone who cannot assemble a crib. I am confident in us. The crib is a work in progress." Their daughter, Emma Fitzgerald Emerson, was born 3 months later on a clear autumn morning. She had Xander's gray eyes and Cara's smile, and she screamed with impressive lung capacity for someone so small. "She is perfect," Xander whispered, cradling her carefully while Cara recovered. He looked terrified and awed in equal measure, this powerful billionaire CEO reduced to a nervous mess by 7 pounds of baby. "She is going to have you wrapped around her finger," Cara observed. "Completely. I have accepted it." He looked up at her, eyes shining. "Thank you." "For what?" "For her, for this. For saying yes to everything I asked and some things I did not even know I wanted." He leaned over carefully to kiss her, mindful of the baby in his arms. I love you too, both of you." Margaret visited the next day, bringing enough gifts to fill a small store. She held Emma with practiced ease, tears streaming down her face. "She looks like you did as a baby," she told Xander. "Same serious expression, like she is contemplating important things." "She is probably hungry," Xander said. "That is pretty important. She is beautiful. You are both going to be wonderful parents." Over the following months, they discovered that parenting was exactly as hard and rewarding as everyone said. There were sleepless nights and constant worries, moments of frustration and exhaustion. But there were also Emma's first smile, her first laugh. The way she would calm instantly when Xander held her and sang off key lullabies. Cara had reduced her hours at Emerson Global, working from home 3 days a week to spend time with Emma. Xander had delegated more responsibilities, determined not to be an absent father like his own had been. They were figuring it out, messily and imperfectly, but together. "I never imagined this," Cara said one night. Emma was finally asleep after an hour of fussing, and they were collapsed on the couch in exhausted relief. "This life, this happiness. You did not imagine marrying a billionaire and having his baby," Xander teased. "I did not imagine finding someone who makes me feel like I can do anything. Like I am enough exactly as I am." She turned to look at him. "You gave me that. From that first day when you said I was exactly good enough. You gave it to yourself. I just recognized what was already there." He pulled her closer, fitting her against his side in the way they had perfected over years together. "I am the lucky one, you know. You took a chance on me, on us, even though it was complicated and risky and potentially career-ending. Best risk I ever took. Better than buying my coffee that morning. That was not a risk. That was an inevitability. I was falling for you even then, I just did not know it yet." He kissed her softly, a promise and a comfort. "I knew. That morning when you showed up in the lobby, coffee in hand, determined to do your job well no matter what. I knew you were going to change my life. For better or worse, for everything." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the baby monitor and the quiet sounds of their house settling around them. Outside, the city glowed with evening light. Inside, they had everything they needed. 5 years later, Emma started kindergarten, a confident little girl with her father's intensity and her mother's warmth. Xander and Cara stood at the edge of the playground, watching her run off to join her classmates without a backward glance. "She did not even say goodbye," Xander said, sounding wounded. "She waved. Barely." Cara took his hand, lacing their fingers together. "She is independent like her parents. I do not remember us being that confident at 5. Maybe we gave her something we did not have, security. The knowledge that she is loved no matter what." He squeezed her hand. "We did okay, did not we, at this parenting thing? We did better than okay." They walked back to the car, Xander's arm around her shoulders. In the years since their wedding, they had built a life that felt solid and real. Xander had expanded Emerson Global into new markets, with Cara consulting on several major projects. They had bought the house they lived in now, with space for a family and a yard for Emma to play in. They had weathered challenges and celebrated victories, always together. "You ever regret it?" Xander asked as they drove home. "Leaving your position as my assistant, starting over in operations?" "Not for a second." "Do you regret pursuing me even though it was complicated?" "Not even half a second." At home, they fell into the routine they had perfected over years. Xander made coffee while Cara checked work emails. They discussed their days, made plans for the evening, debated what to have for dinner. It was ordinary and domestic and perfect. That night, after dinner and dishes and getting ready for bed, Cara found Xander standing in Emma's empty room, looking at the drawings on her walls. "You okay?" she asked, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "Just thinking about how fast it goes. She was a baby and now she is in school. Soon she will be a teenager, then an adult with her own life. We still have time, lots of it, I know, I just do not want to miss any of it." He turned in her arms, pulling her close. "I do not want to be like my father, always working, always somewhere else. I want to be here, present. Even for the small moments. You are nothing like your father. You are here for every bedtime story, every scraped knee, every small triumph. Emma knows you love her. She feels it every day. Because I learned from you how to be present, how to show up." He cupped her face, his gray eyes serious. "You made me a better man, Cara, a better father, A better everything. We made each other better. That is what love does. He kissed her then, slow and deep, and she felt the same electricity she had felt that first time outside her apartment years ago. Some things, she thought, never changed. The way he looked at her, the way her heart raced when he touched her, the certainty that this was exactly where she belonged. "I love you," he murmured against her lips. "I love you too." They stood in their daughter's room, wrapped in each other and in the life they had built, and Cara thought about that Tuesday morning so many years ago. About a broken coffee machine and a decision to break the rules. About how one small choice had led to everything. She had walked into Xander Emerson's life as his assistant, unaware that breaking policy would lead to breaking into love. But now, standing here in the home they shared, surrounded by evidence of the life they had created together, she would not change a single thing. "What are you thinking about?" Xander asked, reading her expression the way he always could, about coffee machines and company policies, and how grateful I am that I am terrible at following rules. He laughed, the sound warm and familiar. "Best policy violation in history. You have said that before, because it is true. You changed my life that day. You changed mine too." They stood together in the quiet house, Emma's drawings bright splashes of color on the walls, the city glowing beyond the windows. Outside, the world continued its relentless pace. Inside, they had everything that mattered. Years would pass. Emma would grow up confident and loved, would go to college and build her own life. Cara and Xander would face new challenges, celebrate new victories, would grow older together with the easy intimacy of people who had chosen each other over and over again. Margaret would be there for every milestone, proud and loving. The company would thrive under Xander's leadership, with Cara by his side as his most trusted advisor and partner. But the foundation would always be that morning, the broken coffee machine. The decision to break the rules for something that seemed small but mattered. The beginning of everything. "Come on," Cara said finally, taking Xander's hand. "Let's go to bed. We have an early morning tomorrow." "We have every morning," he replied. But he followed her out of the room, turning off the light behind them. In their own room, they fell into bed together, tangled up in each other the way they had been for years. And as Cara drifted off to sleep, Xander's arm around her waist and his breath warm against her neck, she thought again about choices and consequences, about risk and reward. She had broken company policy for a cup of coffee, and in return, she had gotten everything. A career she was proud of. A home filled with love. A daughter who knew she was cherished. A husband who saw her, truly saw her, and loved every part of what he found. Some rules, she thought sleepily, were absolutely worth breaking. And some policy violations led to the greatest love stories ever told. The end came not with drama or uncertainty, but with simple, enduring happiness. They had built something real and lasting, something that would outlive company policies and office gossip, and every obstacle that had once seemed insurmountable. They had chosen each other, and they kept choosing each other every single day. That was the real story. Not the billionaire CEO or the ambitious assistant, not the broken rules or the workplace romance. Just two people who had found each other at exactly the right moment and had been brave enough to take the leap. And they lived happily, fully, completely in love for all the years that followed.